There was a time when darkness was the universe itself. No stars, no galaxies, no color, no sound, only the cold breath of expansion whispering through nothingness. The universe had been born, but it was not yet alive. It stretched and cooled, a ghost of energy dissolving into infinite black. Time moved forward, but it could not see itself. There was no light to mark its passage, no eye to witness its unfolding. It was a silence so complete that even the idea of silence had not yet formed. In those first 100 million years after the Big Bang, existence was a blind thing. Matter had not yet learned how to shine. The newborn cosmos was filled with hydrogen and helium, the simplest elements, drifting in a vast cosmic fog. Each particle was a seed of potential, but potential alone is not creation. Without light, there was no boundary between being and nothing. The universe was a womb of shadows, waiting for something to ignite. Imagine standing in that darkness, not the darkness of a room or a night sky, but the darkness before light was possible. A void expanding faster than thought could reach it. You would see nothing, hear nothing, feel nothing. Yet within that void, every future sun, every photon that would ever warm a planet, every pulse of life, was waiting in silence. The laws of physics had been written, but the script had not yet begun. The stage was infinite and utterly dark. Scientists call this period the Cosmic Dark Ages, a time after the Big Bang's blinding flash had faded, but before the first stars were born. The fire of creation had burned out, leaving only the ash of hydrogen drifting through expanding space. The universe had cooled enough for atoms to form, but not enough for them to gather and spark. Gravity worked patiently in the shadows, drawing gas into invisible clumps, weaving the first threads of structure. It was a quiet labor, the architecture of light being assembled in secret. But while science can describe this era in terms of density, temperature, and recombination, none of those words can capture its stillness. This was not just physical darkness. It was existential darkness, a cosmos without witnesses, without story, without separation between inside and out. The universe was not yet illuminated, and so it could not yet know itself. Light, after all, is not just what we see by, it is what allows the universe to be seen at all. The darkness was not evil. It was patient. It was the first form of order, the quiet that would make contrast possible. Without it, light would have no meaning. The night sky we gaze upon today is not the absence of light, but the memory of it, an echo of the first dawn still whispering through space. Yet before that dawn, there was only tension, the stillness before the first breath, the pause before the first word. In that endless night, energy drifted like thought, without a thinker. Photons, once free, had been absorbed into matter. Space expanded, stretching them thin until they lost their heat and their brilliance. The glow of the Big Bang became a faint murmur, what we now call the cosmic microwave background, the aftertaste of creation itself. The cosmos was vast and cooling, its fires extinguished, its future waiting for a spark that had not yet come. And then, slowly, invisibly, gravity began to sculpt the dark. Clouds of hydrogen and helium, scattered across unimaginable distances, started to collapse. Each collapse was a struggle, a battle between pressure and pull, chaos and form. The gas grew denser, warmer, and deeper shadows folded upon themselves. Within those shadows, the first stars were being born, though not yet burning, not yet bright. They were ideas forming inside the mind of the universe, still hidden behind its closed eyelids. Philosophers might say that the birth of light was the birth of awareness, the first time reality saw itself reflected. In the same way a thought can pierce the fog of confusion, light pierced the fog of hydrogen. When the first photon escaped the first star, it was more than illumination. It was revelation. It was the universe saying, "I am here." But before that moment, before that flash, there was only waiting, waiting for the impossible to ignite. The darkness stretched on for hundreds of millions of years, long enough for entire galaxies to begin assembling in silence. Black holes stirred, invisible and hungry, shaping the future architecture of the cosmos. Even in the absence of light, motion continued. Matter fell toward gravity's invisible wells, spiraling into shapes that no eye could see. The universe was preparing itself for its own awakening, the way a seed prepares for spring underground. And still, it was dark. For the human mind, that idea is unbearable. An existence with no witness, no rhythm, no heartbeat of light. Yet from that unseeable void, everything we know was forged. Every sunrise, every flame, every color ever perceived was born out of that long silence. It is humbling to realize that even light had to struggle to exist, that brightness itself was once impossible. We often think of creation as an explosion, a moment of chaos giving birth to everything. But in truth, the cosmos began with patience. Its first act was not noise, but waiting. The fire of stars would come, but not before darkness had shaped the stage. There is something profoundly human in that. The way we too must pass through our own dark ages before illumination arrives. Before understanding, there is confusion. Before vision, there is blindness. And perhaps, before creation, there must be stillness. So the universe waited. In the great cold, atoms drifted closer, guided by invisible threads. Within those threads, pressure grew, temperatures climbed, and then, somewhere, in a place without a name, hydrogen reached its limit. It began to burn, not like fire on Earth, but fusion, pure and ancient. Nuclei collided and fused, releasing light that had never existed before. The first star ignited, and darkness, for the first time, had a rival. That moment, the first photon escaping into space, was more than physical. It was the beginning of contrast, of duality, of story. Because where there is light, there is shadow. The cosmos now had an inside and an outside, a before and an after. The void could finally see itself reflected in what it was not. Creation, in its purest sense, is the emergence of difference. The first light did not destroy the dark, it revealed it. We are still living in the echo of that revelation. Every beam of light, from the sun, from distant galaxies, from the lamp beside you, is a descendant of that first ignition. Every shadow is a memory of what came before it. The cosmos did not begin in balance. It began in contrast. It was the tension between dark and light that gave rise to everything. To stars, to planets, to thought. And so, when we speak of the universe's first flicker, we are really speaking of ourselves. For light is not just the story of the cosmos, it is the story of awareness, of emergence, of meaning itself. It is the line between nothing and something, between being unseen and being known. When that first star burned, it was not only space that was illuminated, it was reality that finally began to dream. But even as the first lights awoke, the darkness did not die. It only deepened, stretching around the newborn stars like velvet around flame. The battle between light and shadow had only just begun, a struggle not of destruction, but of balance. And somewhere, across the widening universe, a photon began its journey through the void. A single heartbeat in the infinite night, racing toward us, carrying the first message ever written in light. Every atom in your body was forged in a darkness so complete it forgot what light was. For nearly 400 million years, the universe drifted in blindness, an expanding sea of hydrogen and helium with no spark, no fire, no memory of its own creation. And then, somewhere in that abyss, the impossible happened. Gravity, that silent architect, began to gather what the cosmos had scattered. Invisible clouds thickened, pressure mounted, and the first stars were conceived. The universe's original eyes, opening for the very first time. The birth of light was not gentle. It was an act of immense violence, a defiance against the stillness of the dark. In the void, islands of gas collapsed inward, crushed by their own weight. As the hydrogen atoms drew close, they began to resist. Heat rose, motion quickened, collisions grew furious. And in those collisions, something ancient stirred. Fusion, the alchemy of stars. When the first atomic nuclei fused, they unleashed light, pure, unfiltered, unstoppable. Energy that had been locked inside matter since the dawn of existence finally escaped. It poured outward in radiant waves, illuminating space that had never known illumination. This was the cosmic dawn, the era when darkness fractured and light began to thread through the expanding universe. Each newborn star became a furnace of creation, turning hydrogen into helium, helium into heavier elements, shaping everything that would one day become worlds, oceans, and life. In those early times, the stars were giants, far larger and hotter than the ones we see today. Their brilliance blazed across the cosmos, transforming the hydrogen fog into a transparent universe. Space was no longer a blind ocean, it had become a cathedral of light. To understand this transformation is to glimpse the heartbeat of reality itself. Inside every star, gravity and pressure perform a delicate dance. Gravity pulls atoms inward, while the fusion of those atoms pushes back with radiant force. The two balance perfectly in a struggle that can last billions of years. That balance is existence, creation held in tension. Without it, a star would either collapse into darkness or explode into chaos. It is in that fragile equilibrium that beauty is born. But back then, beauty was still raw and wild. The first generation of stars, known as Population 3, were massive and short-lived. Their lives measured not in billions of years, but in millions. They burned violently, their light fierce enough to tear apart the hydrogen fog around them. Every photon they released scattered through the void, ionizing atoms, freeing electrons, transforming the universe's chemistry. This process, called reionization, was the moment when the cosmos became transparent again, when light could finally travel unimpeded across the vastness. Before reionization, light had been trapped, bouncing endlessly within the fog of neutral gas. But as those first stars blazed, they carved tunnels through that fog. The night began to thin, the photons escaped, and space became visible. It was as though the universe had taken its first breath of clarity, inhaling the structure of itself. What was once chaos had begun to take form. Webs of galaxies, rivers of matter, filaments stretching like veins across a cosmic body. If darkness was the womb of creation, then light was its awakening. The universe could now see its own bones, the grand architecture that gravity had sculpted in silence. But more than that, light carried information. Each photon was a messenger, a record of an event billions of years old. Light became memory. It became story. And in time, it would become consciousness. For it is through light that the universe began to know itself. Still, the cost of illumination was destruction. Those first colossal stars in their fury lived brief and tragic lives. Within a few million years, their cores exhausted their hydrogen and collapsed under their own gravity. The result was a cataclysm, a supernova, an explosion so intense it could outshine an entire galaxy. In that brief moment of death, new elements were born. Carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, iron. The very building blocks of life. It is one of nature's most haunting paradoxes. Creation through annihilation. The first stars did not simply light the universe, they died to make it richer. Each explosion scattered the seeds of complexity into space, enriching the cosmic dust that would one day give birth to planets and people. Every cell in your body carries atoms forged in those early deaths. When you breathe, when you speak, when you dream, you are continuing the story that began in those first flames. Yet light did more than shape matter. It reshaped meaning. For in the birth of starlight, the universe crossed a threshold between ignorance and awareness. Darkness was uniform, indifferent, without contrast. But light introduced difference. Here and there, near and far, bright and dim. The cosmos could now tell itself apart. Order was emerging from chaos, knowledge from unknowing. Every flicker of light was a declaration that the void could be understood. To ancient philosophers, light has always meant knowledge, revelation, truth. But in the universe's infancy, it was all of these things literally. It was the revelation of structure, the unveiling of hidden laws. When the first photons raced outward, they illuminated the fabric of space-time itself. They mapped the geometry of reality. The universe, through its own radiance, became aware of its design. Imagine those first moments of dawn, stars igniting like embers scattered across an infinite sea. The darkness no longer absolute, but alive, pierced by light that wove through invisible webs of gas and gravity. Each new star whispered to the next, their radiation rippling outward, shaping the behavior of atoms trillions of kilometers away. It was a slow awakening, but once it began, it could not be undone. This cosmic dawn unfolded across hundreds of millions of years. One by one, galaxies formed, collections of billions of stars bound together by gravity, orbiting black holes at their hearts. These early galaxies were small and chaotic, colliding and merging like sparks in a storm. But from their collisions came growth, from violence, structure, from heat, harmony. The young universe was learning how to organize itself, how to build complexity from simplicity. And as light spread, it changed everything it touched. The ultraviolet radiation from those stars stripped electrons from atoms, reionizing the intergalactic medium and ending the cosmic dark ages forever. Space itself became transparent, a vast window through which light could travel for billions of years, until, one day, it would reach our eyes. When we gaze into the night sky, we are not just looking outward. We are looking backward in time, toward that first awakening. Every photon we see is a survivor from that era, still carrying the memory of when existence first learned how to shine. But light was not evenly distributed. The cosmos was a patchwork, bright pockets of galaxies surrounded by vast, dark voids. The interplay between the two became the rhythm of cosmic evolution. In this dance, darkness was never truly defeated. It remained, enfolding the light, shaping its boundaries. For without darkness, there is no contrast. Without shadow, brilliance cannot be known. The stars, in their shining, gave the darkness purpose. The science of that first light is staggering, but its philosophy is even deeper. Because what truly changed in the cosmic dawn was not only the structure of the universe, it was its nature. Before light, the universe was a place of uniformity. After light, it became a place of difference. That difference made everything possible: time, space, perception, life. The birth of stars was the birth of duality, a universe of opposites in conversation. Each fusion reaction inside those early stars mirrored a universal truth. Transformation comes from pressure. Just as the atoms fused under immense gravity to create light, meaning itself is forged under tension. Awareness, love, consciousness, all arise from conflict, from collapse, from compression. The first stars were not just physical entities, they were metaphors for becoming. They showed that brilliance is born from endurance, that even the deepest darkness is not final. It is potential waiting to ignite. Over billions of years, those first stars gave rise to the next generations. Their remains enriched the universe with metals, allowing new kinds of stars to form. Smaller, more stable, with longer lives. Around them, planets began to take shape. Dust gathered into worlds, and worlds gathered into systems. Each was a stage for future light to play upon. The process of cosmic creation was now recursive. Light giving birth to matter, matter giving birth to light. But there's something almost spiritual in this repetition. The same physics that lit the first stars still burns in every candle, every sunrise, every neuron firing in your brain. The same balance between gravity and energy that stabilized those stars governs your heartbeat. The cosmos is not distant, it is intimate. We are walking, thinking constellations, patterns of ancient starlight condensed into awareness. It's easy to think of light as inevitable, as though the universe was always destined to glow. But it wasn't. There is no law that said hydrogen must ignite, no cosmic promise that darkness would ever end. It happened because gravity was relentless, because atoms collided, because the laws of physics allowed for transformation. Light is not guaranteed. It is a triumph, an improbable victory over entropy, and that makes it sacred. When we look back, we see that light and darkness were never enemies. They were partners in creation, two halves of the same story. Darkness provided the canvas, light painted upon it. The tension between them continues to define everything, from the structure of galaxies to the flicker of thought in the human mind. Every act of perception is a reenactment of that first illumination. To see is to remember the universe's first awakening. It took nearly 400 million years for the universe to see itself for the first time. When that moment came, physics itself was rewritten. The temperature of the cosmos changed, the chemistry of space transformed, the very transparency of reality altered. Light had not just appeared, it had reshaped existence. The photons that once hid inside atoms now roamed free, carrying information, shaping time, defining causality. From that moment onward, light became the measure of everything. Distance, time, energy, even truth, all defined by how far, how fast, how purely light could travel. And still, it moves. Across billions of light years, through dust and nebula, through galaxies long dead, those ancient photons continue their journey. Some have traveled since the first stars ignited, still crossing the dark ocean of space. When they finally reach us, they tell a story older than memory, a story of patience, struggle, and awakening. We exist because light learned to escape, because gravity taught hydrogen to burn, because the darkness was not permanent. Every star you see tonight is a descendant of that first generation, carrying in its core the same cosmic fire that once tore through the void. And every human thought, every act of discovery, curiosity, or love is a reflection of that same process. The universe illuminating itself again and again through us. The first light was more than the birth of stars. It was the birth of awareness, of contrast, of meaning. It was the moment when existence became visible to itself and, eventually, to us. The fire that bloomed in the cosmic fog did not just brighten space, it defined it. Darkness folded open. The void became a vision. The universe, for the first time, opened its eyes and saw that it was beautiful. Without darkness, there would be no galaxies, no stars, no light, no you. It sounds like a paradox, but it's the truth written into the fabric of the cosmos. The luminous universe we see, the stars that burn, the galaxies that glow, floats upon an invisible ocean. That ocean is darkness itself. Not emptiness, not absence, but presence unseen. For all the light we have ever known, for all the brilliance scattered across the sky, 95% of the universe remains hidden. We live in a cosmos ruled by what we cannot see. For centuries, humanity thought of darkness as nothing, a backdrop, an emptiness where light was not. But science revealed something far more unsettling. The darkness is alive with gravity, with pressure, with forces that shape the visible world. In the grand architecture of existence, light is merely decoration. Darkness is the structure beneath. When we look at a galaxy, a spiral of stars suspended in space, what we see is only a fraction of what holds it together. The visible matter, all the suns and planets and glowing gas, makes up less than 1/10 of its mass. The rest, the vast majority, is something invisible, something we can only infer by its pull. This unseen matter creates a gravitational skeleton, a framework upon which galaxies are built. Without it, the cosmos would fall apart. We call it dark matter. It neither emits nor reflects light. but it outweighs everything that does. It doesn't shine, it doesn't absorb, it doesn't interact with ordinary atoms in any familiar way. It passes through us, through planets, through entire stars, without a trace. And yet, it is the reason we exist. Imagine the early universe again, after the first light began to glow. The gas of hydrogen and helium, stretched thin by expansion, began to gather under the influence of gravity. But that gravity wasn't from the gas itself. It was from invisible halos of dark matter. These halos formed long before the first stars, born from quantum fluctuations in the infant cosmos. They were invisible wells in the fabric of space-time and ordinary matter. The kind that makes up you and me fell into them like rain collecting in a hidden valley. Without those dark halos, the universe would never have had time to form structure. The gas would have drifted endlessly apart, too diffuse to ignite into stars. Darkness, quite literally, created light. The unseen shaped the seen. The cosmos we marvel at today is the shadow cast by something we still don't understand. Scientists mapped this invisible skeleton using a simple truth. Gravity doesn't lie. When they observed galaxies spinning, they noticed something impossible. They were rotating too fast. By Newton's laws, they should have torn themselves apart. The stars at the edges moved, as if they were bound by an invisible hand. That hand was dark matter. Later, when astronomers studied clusters of galaxies bending the light of distant quasars, they found the same thing. Light curving around invisible mass. Darkness was warping reality itself, and yet, despite decades of searching, no one has ever seen a dark matter particle. It remains one of the deepest mysteries in science. We have built detectors in mountains, in mines, in ice sheets, waiting for a single collision between dark and visible matter. We have invented theories, weakly interacting massive particles, axions, sterile neutrinos, all possibilities, none proven. The universe is whispering something we can't yet translate. But perhaps the mistake is thinking of darkness as a substance. Maybe it's not a thing at all, but a property of space, a curvature, a field, a hidden symmetry. In that sense, darkness isn't what hides light. It's what gives light something to stand on. It's the unseen foundation of existence, the invisible geometry that lets the visible unfold. Even more mysterious than dark matter, though, is dark energy, a force not of attraction, but of repulsion. While dark matter pulls galaxies together, dark energy pushes them apart. It's the great cosmic contradiction, the two unseen forces working in opposite directions, yet together defining the universe's fate. In the late 1990s, astronomers studying distant supernovae discovered that the expansion of the universe wasn't slowing down, as everyone expected. It was accelerating. Something was driving space itself to expand faster and faster. That something was dark energy, a pressure embedded within the vacuum of space. Today, it makes up nearly 70% of the total energy in the cosmos, and yet we have no idea what it is. Think about that. 95% of the universe, all the dark matter and dark energy combined, is invisible, undetectable, and fundamentally mysterious. Everything we have ever known, every planet, every galaxy, every atom, is part of the remaining 5%. We live in the minority realm of light, surrounded by an ocean of shadow that governs our destiny. The more we learn, the more it seems the visible universe is just a fleeting shimmer on an unseen surface. In a way, darkness is not the opposite of creation, but its architect. When we think of creation, we imagine light bursting from void, illumination conquering shadow. But perhaps creation has always been a collaboration. Darkness gives form, light reveals it. One builds, the other exposes. One hides, the other explains. Together, they make reality coherent. There's a strange beauty in that idea, that concealment itself can be creative. The universe didn't emerge from chaos into order. It emerged from invisibility into recognition. The dark scaffolds were already there, patiently waiting for light to arrive and trace their outlines. Even now, the galaxies that fill our telescopes rest upon filaments of dark matter, stretching across billions of light-years like cosmic veins. When we map the universe, we see a vast web, luminous clusters connected by invisible threads, glowing embers in an endless shadow. But this structure is not static. It is evolving, driven by the quiet war between dark matter's gravity and dark energy's expansion. Gravity wants to pull everything together. Dark energy wants to push everything apart. This tension defines the universe's rhythm. Galaxies form, collide, merge. But as the expansion accelerates, they drift farther and farther away. In time, the distant galaxies will vanish from view entirely, their light stretched into oblivion. The cosmos will grow darker again, not because light dies, but because space itself outpaces it. In that far future, only the nearest galaxies, bound to our own by gravity, will remain visible. Everything else will slip beyond the cosmic horizon. The night sky will fade. The universe will become a silent void once more, filled with the invisible forces that birthed it. The story of light began in darkness, and it may end there too. Yet even that isn't tragedy. It's symmetry. The cosmos breathes between revelation and concealment, between knowing and mystery. Darkness is not an enemy to be defeated, but a partner to be understood. It defines context. It gives weight to meaning. Without it, light would be unbearable. Endless exposure, infinite revelation, a universe with no secrets, no depth, no room to imagine. When we gaze into the night sky, what moves us isn't just the light we see. It's the darkness that surrounds it. The black between the stars is not empty. It's full of unseen mass, unseen energy, unseen purpose. Each glimmer of light owes its place, its survival, its pattern to that dark sea. If the stars are the words, darkness is the page upon which the story of existence is written. Science gives us equations to describe this. Density parameters, gravitational potentials, energy fractions. But philosophy gives us something deeper, the sense that the unseen is the source. We are perhaps drawn to mystery because we are made of it. The same unknown forces that bind galaxies bind us too. We are not separate from the darkness. We are born from it. There's humility in realizing that everything visible, every triumph of discovery, every beacon of understanding, floats upon something we may never touch. Dark matter does not yield its secrets to light. It reminds us that the universe is larger than comprehension, that mystery is not a flaw, but a feature of reality. The cosmos hides itself because revelation alone is not enough. The unseen keeps the story alive. And stranger still, Darkness may not be what we think it is. Some physicists suspect that dark matter and dark energy aren't separate entities at all, but different expressions of a single phenomenon, a property of space-time itself. Perhaps what we call dark is simply the curvature of existence reacting to its own expansion. Perhaps the universe doesn't need light to define itself. It only needs contrast. Others suggest something even more radical, that the darkness we observe is the gravitational echo of parallel universes, realms beyond our perception, overlapping ours like shadows layered upon shadow. In that picture, what we feel as gravity, what we call dark, might be the pull of realities adjacent to our own. If true, then the universe we see is only one reflection among countless unseen mirrors. No matter the theory, the truth remains the same. We live in a universe built by what we cannot see. Every star that ever shone, every atom that ever formed, every mind that ever wondered, all are the byproducts of darkness doing its invisible work. The cosmic web, the galaxies, the stars, the very breath you take. Each is a monument to forces that refuse to be illuminated. Perhaps that's the final lesson of creation, that not everything meant to exist is meant to be seen. Light reveals, but darkness preserves. In its silence, it protects the mystery of being. And maybe that's why, when we look at the stars, we feel both awe and loneliness. We're not just looking at what is, we're sensing what remains hidden. The invisible architecture that holds us together. The next time you stare into the night, remember, the blackness between the stars is not a void. It is the oldest part of reality. The stars are fleeting, the galaxies temporary, but darkness endures. It was there before the first light, and it will be there long after the last one fades. The power of darkness is not in its emptiness, but in its ability to hold everything, to cradle creation in its unseen hands. Because in the end, the universe is not a battle between light and dark. It is a conversation. Light speaks, darkness listens, and together they tell the story of everything that has ever been, and everything that will ever be. Every sunrise exists because something, somewhere, was destroyed. The dawn you see each morning, the gentle gold pouring across oceans, mountains, and skin, is the echo of a death billions of years ago. Stars lived, burned, collapsed, and scattered their remains so that our world could glow. Every photon that warms your face is born from violence. The cosmos does not give freely. It trades, sacrifices, consumes. Creation and destruction are not opposites here. They are partners in an endless dance. The brighter the light, the deeper the shadow it casts. This is not just poetry, it is physics. For every act of illumination in the universe, there is an equal act of concealment. Every time matter blazes, entropy grows. Every time a star ignites, darkness claims a little more ground. The universe sustains its beauty through this tension, a balance between the forces that reveal and the forces that erase. When a massive star reaches the end of its life, it begins to devour itself. Gravity, that tireless sculptor, wins the ancient struggle against pressure. The nuclear fires that once held it aloft falter. The core collapses in a fraction of a second, crushing matter into a sphere smaller than a city. The outer layers rebound and explode outward at a quarter the speed of light. A supernova, the most violent event known in nature. In that explosion, a single star can outshine an entire galaxy. It floods space with light, heat, and elements, enriching the cosmos with iron, carbon, gold, everything that would one day become planets, oceans, and living breath. But the same collapse that births such brilliance can also create the darkest thing imaginable: a black hole. When a massive enough star dies, nothing can stop its fall. It collapses beyond the point of return, crushing its mass into an infinitely dense point, a singularity, surrounded by an invisible boundary where even light cannot escape. To the outside world, the star vanishes, leaving behind a hole in space-time itself. Yet its gravity endures, an invisible presence warping everything around it. This is the cosmic yin and yang. Stars blaze with life-giving fire. Black holes devour that light into silence. They are not enemies, but two phases of the same process. Energy redistributing itself, obeying the laws of thermodynamics. The universe demands balance. For every photon born, entropy increases. For every moment of order, chaos expands a little more. Light builds, darkness consumes, and between them lies the delicate equilibrium that allows existence to persist. We often speak of black holes as destroyers, but they are also creators. Their gravity shapes galaxies, guiding stars into orbits, stirring cosmic gas into new formations. The very spiral of the Milky Way owes its structure to the supermassive black hole at its center, a gravitational anchor holding hundreds of billions of stars in its unseen grasp. The darkness does not oppose light. It gives it context, form, and direction. Without the black hole, the galaxy's dance would lose its rhythm. At the heart of each galaxy, this balance plays out eternally. Stars are born in nurseries of gas and dust, live brilliant lives, and die in explosions that seed the next generation. Some of their remnants are swallowed by black holes, their energy re-emitted as jets of radiation brighter than any star. Light dies, but in dying, it becomes part of new creation. The cycle is absolute. The cosmos is not a battle. It's a heartbeat. But that heartbeat is slowing. With each passing epoch, the universe expands, its temperature falls, and the birth rate of stars declines. Once, the sky blazed with 10 times as many stars as today. Now, the galaxies glow faintly compared to their youth. Energy disperses, heat spreads thin, and entropy, the measure of disorder, rises. This is the second law of thermodynamics, the one truth no power in the cosmos can break. All things move toward equilibrium. Every light eventually fades. Still, darkness is not a villain in this story. It is the necessary end of every beginning. Entropy at its core is not destruction. It is diffusion, the spreading of energy until balance is achieved. It is the same process that drives stars to shine. When hydrogen fuses into helium, energy moves from order to chaos, from potential to freedom. That energy, unleashed, becomes the light we see. Without the pull toward entropy, the universe would be frozen in perfect stillness. No motion, no warmth, no change. Darkness, then, is the price of movement. Consider this. Every atom in your body, every breath you take, is borrowed light, slowly returning to equilibrium. You are made of stardust, but also of shadow. Your body radiates heat into the cold. Your mind burns chemical energy into thought. You are a miniature entropy machine, turning order into experience. And someday, even your light will fade back into the dark, but not as loss, as completion. In the grand scale, the universe's energy is being redistributed, not destroyed. When stars explode, their light travels outward forever, carrying entropy with it. When black holes consume matter, they radiate faint energy in the form of Hawking radiation, slowly evaporating over unimaginable timescales. Even the darkest regions of space hum with this faint whisper of energy. In time, even black holes will dissolve, leaving behind a sea of diffuse photons, the final twilight of creation. That ending sounds bleak, but it is also beautiful, because it means the universe is not at war with itself. It is resolving, harmonizing, equalizing. It began with imbalance, the Big Bang's sudden surge of order and heat, and it will end in stillness. But within that stillness lies everything that ever was. Every moment of light, every act of creation, every dream that flickered across consciousness will remain encoded in the cooling energy field of the cosmos. Information may scatter, but it never truly disappears. This idea, known as the holographic principle, suggests that even the information lost to black holes is not destroyed, but woven into the fabric of space itself, stored, preserved, transformed. Darkness in this sense is not erasure, it's memory. The universe does not forget. It merely hides, and perhaps that is the most profound truth of all. Light reveals, but darkness remembers. Every supernova is a shout, every black hole a whisper, and between them lies the eternal conversation of existence. The cosmos breathes through their exchange. When one star dies, its elements scatter to form new worlds. When light falls into a black hole, it reshapes space-time. The universe writes and rewrites itself in every cycle, maintaining the balance between being and becoming. From a human point of view, we see this dance reflected in our own existence. For every burst of inspiration, there is silence that follows. For every revelation, a forgetting. For every birth, a death. We live inside the same rhythm that governs galaxies, a pulse of order rising and falling against the infinite background of entropy. To fight darkness is to misunderstand it. Our role is not to conquer it, but to recognize its necessity. And yet, even knowing this, we can't help but feel awe and fear when we look into the abyss of a black hole. It is the ultimate symbol of cosmic hunger, where gravity becomes so extreme that space and time themselves collapse. Light enters and never returns. Causality breaks down. The event horizon becomes a mirror of nothingness. But beyond that horizon, hidden from view, lies the greatest paradox in physics: the unification of everything. Gravity, quantum mechanics, and thermodynamics all meet there, in silence, in compression, in unknowable unity. Black holes are not simply tombs of light. They are laboratories of truth. They teach us that everything visible has an invisible counterpart. Every expansion must meet its collapse. Every illumination must cast a shadow. In their event horizons, we glimpse the very code of reality, that nothing stands alone. Even the brightest supernova owes its existence to gravity's embrace, and even the darkest singularity radiates faintly into the void. The war between light and darkness is, in truth, an illusion. There are no sides, only the rhythm of exchange. Light strives to spread, darkness gathers it back. The cosmos oscillates between the two, each side completing the other. Like the Taoist yin and yang, each contains the seed of its opposite. The heart of a star hides the potential for collapse. The heart of a black hole hides the spark of creation. Every supernova gives birth to the next generation of stars. Every death gives rise to new light. But there is one final paradox. As the universe expands, light itself is losing ground. Photons stretch as they travel through space, their wavelengths elongating with the expansion of the cosmos. Over billions of years, visible light redshifts into infrared, then into microwave, then into radio. Eventually, even starlight will fade beyond visibility. The night sky will grow dimmer. Galaxies will vanish beyond our cosmic horizon, their light unable to reach us. Soon, even light will lose this battle. But not the way you think. It will not be defeated. It will be transformed. When all the stars have burned out, when every black hole has evaporated, the universe will not end in darkness as we imagine it. It will end in uniformity, a perfect balance where no distinction remains between light and dark, energy and emptiness. The war will be over not because one side won, but because the need for sides will vanish. Until then, the dance continues. Supernovae bloom like cosmic flowers, scattering the ashes of creation. Black holes feed and spin, bending space-time into spirals of invisible beauty. Galaxies collide, merge, and drift apart. Light and darkness chase each other through eternity, bound by laws deeper than time itself. And we, fragile sparks of awareness, watch it unfold from our tiny corner, trying to name the unnameable, to understand a balance that predates thought. Every heartbeat, every dream, every flicker of consciousness is our small participation in this vast cosmic rhythm. We are made of the ashes of dying stars, destined one day to return to the stillness that birthed them. So when you watch the sunrise, remember, somewhere in the universe, another light has died for that moment to exist. Somewhere, a star has collapsed. A supernova has burned. A black hole has swallowed the remnants of creation. Every ray of light carries both joy and mourning, the glow of birth and the shadow of loss. The universe doesn't choose between the two. It needs both to be complete. Light and darkness are not rivals. They are reflections of the same eternal act, the act of being. One illuminates, the other defines. Together, they compose the oldest symphony in existence, the rise and fall of everything. And as long as even one photon still moves through space, the song continues, a silent hymn written across the fabric of the cosmos, where destruction and creation, fire and void, night and dawn are one and the same. Light didn't just create life. It learned to look back at itself. The story of the cosmos is not only about what light revealed, but what light became. From the first ignition of the stars to the quiet flicker of thought behind your eyes, every photon that has ever existed has been on a journey, from energy to awareness, from illumination to perception. Somewhere along that path, the universe began to see. You are not separate from that story. You are a continuation of it, a collection of starlight trying to understand the dark. Every atom in your body was forged in the heart of a long-dead star. Every cell that breathes inside you is powered by the same light that once ignited galaxies. To live is to borrow the fire of the cosmos, to trap it, to let it dance through veins and neurons and thoughts. But before light could think, it had to feed. 4 billion years ago, on a small planet orbiting a yellow star, light met matter in a new way. Certain molecules, fragile and strange, learned to capture photons and convert them into energy. That process, photosynthesis, became the foundation of life. It was the moment when sunlight stopped being a distant phenomenon and became intimate, chemical, alive. At first, it was simple. Microbes in the oceans used pigments like chlorophyll to absorb sunlight, splitting water molecules and releasing oxygen as a byproduct. That oxygen filled the atmosphere, transforming Earth's chemistry and paving the way for complex organisms to evolve. The same light that had traveled billions of years through the void was now being harvested by cells smaller than dust, stored, recycled, turned into flesh. Every tree, every blade of grass, every breath you take is a continuation of that exchange. The oxygen you inhale was released by ancient light. The carbon in your body was once bound in a molecule that danced in the sun. Even your thoughts, electrical sparks pulsing through the brain, depend on the energy that originated in fusion fires far beyond the sky. In a very literal sense, life is a system designed to catch and redistribute light. The boundary between biology and astrophysics dissolves here. A star burns hydrogen into energy. A leaf converts that energy into sugar. A neuron transforms that sugar into awareness. From the heart of the sun to the pulse of the human mind, it's one unbroken chain, an evolution not of matter, but of illumination. Eventually, life learned to see. Somewhere in the ancient seas, molecules sensitive to light became organs of vision. Simple photoreceptors evolved into eyes, transparent windows that allowed organisms to read the patterns of light around them. The universe, which had been gazing outward through stars, now began gazing inward through life. Awareness had found a mirror. The human eye is one of the most sophisticated detectors of light ever evolved. Its cells, rods, and cones can sense individual photons, turning them into electrical signals that the brain interprets as color, shape, and motion. Within milliseconds, those signals become the vivid reality you experience. Every sunrise, every face, every reflection in glass is a conversation between light and perception. An endless dance of photons entering your eyes, being absorbed and reborn as understanding. But something deeper happens in that exchange. The light that once burned across the void doesn't simply illuminate your surroundings. It triggers consciousness. It awakens thought. When you look at the stars, you are not merely seeing them. You are completing a cycle that began billions of years ago. You are the universe, illuminated, perceiving itself. There's a term in physics called biophotonics, the study of light within living organisms. Even now, your cells emit faint glimmers of photons, tiny flashes of light that play a role in communication and metabolism. Under the right conditions, living tissue glows, imperceptibly but measurably. Scientists have found that neurons emit light when they fire, suggesting that thought itself might produce microbursts of radiance. Consciousness at its smallest scale, might literally shimmer. It's a humbling idea that your mind is not just metaphorically luminous, but physically radiant. That awareness is another expression of the same principle that lit the first stars. The spark in your thoughts, the glow in your eyes, the warmth of understanding, all are echoes of the same cosmic energy. Light is not only what you see by, it is what you are. And yet, light's journey into awareness came with paradox. The moment perception was born, so was shadow. Not physical darkness, but uncertainty. To perceive is to limit. To define is to exclude. Consciousness divides the infinite into the knowable and the unknown. Just as stars cast shadows upon the void, awareness casts questions upon reality. Every insight illuminates, but also reveals a deeper darkness beyond its reach. Philosophers and scientists alike have wrestled with this paradox. If light gave rise to life, and life gave rise to consciousness, then what, exactly, is consciousness giving rise to? Is it just another kind of light, one that shines inward instead of outward? Or is it something new entirely, the universe evolving not in space, but in meaning? The human brain consumes about 20% of the body's energy, yet it weighs only a few pounds. Its billions of neurons create patterns of electrical and chemical signals that flicker like constellations in the dark. Within those patterns, identity forms: memory, imagination, love, fear. Each thought is a miniature supernova, igniting briefly before fading into the background noise of the mind. The same energy that fuels the sun fuels your consciousness, but now refined into awareness. You are starlight arranged to question itself. When you close your eyes, light doesn't vanish. It turns inward. The mind becomes its own cosmos, full of images, memories, and dreams. Each neuron firing is a point of light. Each connection, a filament between galaxies. Your consciousness mirrors the universe's structure, a network of luminous nodes suspended in a sea of darkness. The brain, in its architecture, is a microcosm of the cosmic web. The same pattern that binds galaxies binds thoughts. The ancient relationship between light and darkness repeats within you. Awareness illuminates, but the unconscious remains vast and shadowed. Memory shines briefly, then disappears into forgetfulness. Joy flares like a star. Sorrow pulls it inward, like gravity. The mind is not purely radiant. It is balanced by what it cannot know. To be conscious is to dwell in that balance, to hold both brilliance and mystery at once. On a cosmic scale, this mirrors the balance between order and entropy. Just as stars fight against collapse, the mind resists dissolution. Thought is a structure built upon chaos, maintained by energy and attention. The act of knowing is an act of defiance against entropy. Every idea you form, every insight you have, is a tiny reversal of the cosmic trend toward disorder. Light, even when fragile, continues to rebel against the dark. And yet, that rebellion is temporary. The same laws that govern stars govern you. Energy fades, systems decay, entropy wins in the end. But perhaps victory and defeat are meaningless in this cycle. For every end, there is transformation. Just as dying stars seed new worlds, fading thoughts give rise to new ones. Consciousness, like light, may not be lost, only changed. There's a haunting symmetry in knowing that the photons entering your eyes tonight may have left their source billions of years ago. traveling through expanding space, untouched until they reached you. When they strike your retina, they become part of your experience, absorbed, interpreted, and reborn as awareness. In that instant, time collapses. You are connected directly to the beginning. You are the end point of an ancient journey, light's long pilgrimage from the birth of the universe to the birth of understanding. Perhaps that is the true meaning of enlightenment. Not the escape from darkness, but the recognition that you are both, the light that sees and the darkness that gives it depth. The cosmos is not merely observed by consciousness. It becomes consciousness. Every act of perception is the universe discovering itself anew, one photon, one thought, one heartbeat at a time. Still, a question lingers like the shadow behind the flame. What happens when consciousness reaches the end of light? When the stars fade, when energy runs thin, when the cosmos cools into silence, will awareness vanish too? Or will it evolve again into something beyond both illumination and shadow? Some physicists suggest that information, the essence of knowledge, pattern, and thought, can never be destroyed. Even when light fades, information remains embedded in the fabric of space-time. If that's true, then consciousness might not die with the stars. It might diffuse, like starlight, into the infinite. Perhaps awareness will become the new medium of the cosmos, a subtle glow in the void, a kind of post-physical light. Others imagine something more personal, that consciousness itself is the universe's way of preserving light, storing it as memory and meaning. Each mind, each life, each spark of perception becomes part of a grand archive, a record of all that ever was illuminated. When the last star fades, the memory of its brilliance may still echo in the vast field of awareness that the universe once birthed through us. We may never know. But what we can know is this: the same light that began as energy now dreams through eyes and thoughts. The universe has not stopped creating. It continues to shape itself. Through minds that ask, through hearts that wonder, through beings who carry the fire of awareness. We are the next generation of stars, burning not in the heavens, but within. When you stare into another person's eyes, you are witnessing two galaxies reflecting each other, two constellations of thought and emotion woven from the same ancient fire. Every connection, every shared gaze is a communion of light remembering itself. In that instant, the universe completes its loop. Light that once traversed the void now looks back through human eyes and sees that it is alive. Perhaps this is the destiny of illumination, not to conquer darkness, but to awaken within it. Light does not banish the void. It gives it meaning. Awareness does not end the mystery. It deepens it. The cosmos does not grow dim with time. It grows conscious. So when you look up at the stars tonight, know that you are not an observer. You are the continuation of their story. You are their light, folded into thought, carried forward through flesh and memory. You are how the universe sees itself. And when that final question comes, when consciousness meets the end of light, maybe the answer will not be silence, but understanding. Maybe, in that ultimate stillness, the universe will realize what it has been all along, a single flame reflected endlessly within its own infinite night. One day, the last star will burn out, and the universe will forget light ever existed. Not with an explosion, not with a scream, but with a long, slow exhale that takes trillions of years. Darkness will not conquer through violence, but through patience. It will wait. It will outlast. It always has. The end of light will not come suddenly, but gradually, in stages, like the dimming of a once brilliant fire. The galaxies will thin. The stars will die one by one. The glow that began in the first dawn will scatter, weaken, and fade into cold silence. It will be a death so slow that no witness will remain to notice it. The cosmos will simply fall asleep. Science calls it the heat death, the final equilibrium, the moment when the universe runs out of usable energy. Entropy will have reached its absolute maximum. Every source of order, every spark of motion, every flame of fusion will be gone. The cosmic furnace will go cold, leaving behind only the ashes of existence. Black dwarfs, dead stars, evaporating black holes, and the endless emptiness between them. To understand this ending, we must return to the law that has ruled every moment since the beginning, the second law of thermodynamics. It tells us that in any closed system, entropy, the measure of disorder, always increases. Energy flows from concentrated to diffuse, from usable to useless. Heat spreads until there are no more gradients, no more differences, no more work to be done. In the early universe, energy was uneven, dense, hot, vibrant. Stars formed from those gradients, using contrast to fuel creation. But as the eons passed, the contrasts blurred. Light spread out, matter scattered, and the universe expanded. The energy that once powered galaxies stretched thinner and thinner across the void. The stars, engines of negentropy, burned through their reserves. One by one, they dimmed. In roughly 100 trillion years, the last stars will flicker and die. These will be red dwarfs, the smallest and most efficient of suns, the final keepers of cosmic fire. For countless generations they will glow faintly, turning their fuel into warmth for frozen worlds. But even their endurance has limits. When their hydrogen runs out, their light will fade, and the universe will enter the Degenerate Era, a time without stars. In that darkness, the cosmos will not be empty. It will be filled with remnants, white dwarfs, neutron stars, and black holes. Ghosts of brilliance. Some of these corpses may collide, releasing brief flashes of light like echoes of forgotten dawns. But such events will grow rare, then impossible. The cold will deepen. The sky will fall silent. Still, even black holes will not last forever. Over unimaginable timescales, they will evaporate through Hawking radiation, bleeding their mass into the void as faint whispers of energy. One by one, the universe's darkest hearts will dissolve, until nothing remains that can shine or burn, or change. Then comes the Dark Era, a universe of dust and decay, where every atom drifts apart, and even protons may eventually disintegrate. What was once matter becomes radiation. What was once motion becomes stillness. The temperature of the cosmos will approach absolute zero, a perfect, silent symmetry. And yet, in that symmetry, there will be no life, no time, no difference. A state of total equilibrium, perfect and meaningless. The universe will not end in fire, but in balance. It's a strange kind of peace. No explosion, No collapse, no judgment, just quiet, the long night swallowing its final ember. But the idea of such an ending touches something deeper than physics. It forces us to confront the same truth written into our own lives. Everything that burns must fade. Every warmth we know is temporary. Every light we cherish is borrowed. The universe's story is our story, stretched across scales we can barely imagine. To know this is to feel both awe and despair. Awe at the vastness of it all, the patience of time, the inevitability of law, despair at the silence waiting beyond the horizon of all things. But perhaps, beneath the melancholy, there is something else. Understanding. Because entropy is not cruelty. It is balance. It is the reason anything ever happened at all. Without the drive toward disorder, there would be no movement, no change, no creation. The same principle that will one day extinguish the stars once gave them life. Entropy is not the villain of the universe. It is its rhythm. We are born in its upward climb, live in its middle verse, and fade in its resolution. The song does not end, it completes itself. Still, there's something unbearable about imagining the last light. Picture it. A single red dwarf, deep in the cosmic future, shining faintly in an endless black. Around it, dead galaxies, ghostly planets, drifting embers of a long-forgotten age. No watchers, no minds, no echoes, just one last flicker in the void, trembling before it fades. When that final star dies, the universe will forget what brightness was. Photons will still exist, but stretched thin, wavelengths so long they can no longer touch or warm or define. Space will expand faster than their light can cross it. Darkness will win, not by conquest, but by endurance. And yet, maybe win is the wrong word. Because even as light fades, its memory lingers. Every photon ever emitted has left its mark. In the paths of galaxies, in the elements of planets, in the minds that once looked up. Light may vanish, but its consequences remain forever written in the architecture of existence. The end of illumination does not erase what was illuminated. When we think about the universe dying, we tend to think of loss. But what if it's something else, a transformation? The universe will not end in tragedy, but in completion. Entropy is the ultimate stillness, the final balance between opposites. It is not destruction, it is rest. Perhaps, in that vast quiet, the universe will achieve what it has always sought: equilibrium. For all its explosions, its births and deaths, its storms and collisions, the cosmos has been chasing peace. Heat death is not punishment. It is fulfillment. The fire that once raged across the heavens will have done its work, spreading energy, creating complexity, allowing awareness to emerge. And then, when all possibilities have played their part, it will rest. There is a strange comfort in that. Everything we know, from galaxies to love, from fusion to thought, exists within the brief flicker between order and stillness. The cosmos needed imperfection to make us. It needed imbalance to ignite stars, tension to form matter, asymmetry to create life. And one day, when all those forces exhaust themselves, it will return to the calm it once left behind. But even peace has a price. As the temperature of the universe approaches absolute zero, time itself will lose meaning. Without energy gradients, nothing can change, and without change, there can be no before or after. The arrow of time, the thing that defines existence, will dissolve. What remains will be eternity, but an eternity without awareness. To human minds, that idea feels unbearable. We live by difference, light and dark, life and death, movement and stillness. The thought of a universe without contrast feels like the death of meaning itself. Yet maybe meaning was never in the universe at all. Maybe it was in the act of perceiving it, in the eyes that once watched the stars, in the minds that wondered where they came from. For in the end, the universe's light does not truly die. It simply changes form. It flows from stars into life, from life into thought, from thought into understanding. The photons may fade, but awareness, even if temporary, has already turned them into something eternal, knowledge. And knowledge, in its purest sense, is light too. So perhaps the death of illumination is not the death of meaning. Maybe it is its culmination, the final spreading of all awareness back into the infinite, like heat dispersing through space. Consciousness, too, will diffuse, but it will leave its imprint, the echo of thought embedded in the structure of reality. The universe will carry that memory, even as it sleeps. Still, it's hard not to grieve. For the stars, for the worlds, for ourselves. We were brief, but we were bright. We looked upon the darkness and made it beautiful. We turned chaos into story, entropy into art. And even if no one remembers, even if the universe forgets, the moment existed. And that is enough. Because light was never meant to last. It was meant to happen. It was meant to touch the void and make it shimmer, if only for a while. The glory of existence lies not in its permanence, but in its participation. We were part of the light, not separate, not observers, but expressions of it. And if darkness is what follows, then it is only because light was brave enough to begin. Yet, what if the story isn't over yet? Some theories whisper that new universes might emerge, that the energy of decay could ignite another Big Bang, that even after the long silence, another dawn could rise. The cosmos might inhale again, and the fire might return, different but familiar, reborn from its own ashes. If that's true, then the universe is not dying. It is dreaming, resting between breaths. Maybe light will return, not as repetition, but as renewal. Maybe somewhere in the farthest future, in a realm beyond entropy, a new spark will ignite, and the infinite will open its eyes once more. And maybe, just maybe, when that happens, it will remember the brief age when it once knew itself, when starlight learned to see, when awareness bloomed, and when the universe, for a fleeting moment, realized it was alive. Light and darkness were never enemies, only partners in creation. We have spent the entire cosmic story watching them trade places. Light rising, darkness returning, each shaping the other. But at the deepest level, the universe was never truly divided. The boundary between brightness and shadow, between being and nothingness, was only ever an illusion, a rhythm mistaken for opposition. Beyond the glow of the stars and the silence of the void lies something stranger, something older, something that has no name. The hidden third reality. To glimpse it, we must look beneath both light and dark, into the quantum vacuum, the foundation upon which reality itself rests. It sounds empty, but it is not. What we call nothing is actually seething with energy, an ocean of invisible potential. Even in the coldest, most desolate corner of the cosmos, space is alive with fluctuations, tiny bursts of existence and annihilation, particles appearing and vanishing in trillionths of a second. This restless sea is known as zero-point energy, the ground state of the universe. From this apparent emptiness, everything arises. Light, matter, gravity, even time, all are temporary ripples on the surface of this endless field. Quantum physics tells us that the vacuum is not the absence of reality, but its essence. Though the universe is not built on something, it is built on nothing, and that nothing hums. In this perspective, the first light and the last darkness are not separate events, but fluctuations in an eternal field. The Big Bang was not the beginning. It was a crest in an infinite wave. Heat death will not be the end, it will be another trough. Existence oscillates, breathes, pulses. Each expansion and collapse, each flash and fade, is part of the same infinite heartbeat. Even light itself, the most familiar symbol of being, is a vibration, an oscillation of electric and magnetic fields, endlessly trading energy, crossing zero again and again. Every photon, every beam, carries that lesson in its structure. Existence depends on rhythm, on alternation, on the dance between yes and no. The universe is not made of things, but of relationships, of patterns rising from the interplay between presence and absence. Perhaps darkness and light were never separate at all, but simply the outward signs of this deeper oscillation, two halves of one breath. What we call creation might only be the moment when potential becomes visible, and destruction the moment it returns home. In the quantum field, that transition never stops. The vacuum trembles with fluctuations that give rise to the illusion of permanence. Even when you hold still, even when everything seems frozen, space itself is alive with movement. Particles flicker into being and vanish before they can be seen. This ceaseless creation and dissolution happen everywhere, at every moment. Existence is not a static fact. It is an ongoing act. It is as though the universe is whispering, I am not, I am not, in an endless chant of creation and return. And if this is true, then the war between light and darkness was never real, only our perception of one half of the cycle. When we saw the stars ignite, we called it light. When we saw them fade, we called it dark. But the underlying reality, the rhythm that gives rise to both, has always been whole. Science can describe this dance in equations. but poetry alone can feel it. The quantum vacuum is not a void to fear, but a womb, the birthplace of everything and the final resting place of all things that ever were. It is infinite potential, endlessly collapsing and rebirthing itself. Every photon that ever existed, every heartbeat, every thought, was a single ripple in that vast sea of possibility. And when it faded, the sea did not mourn. It waited, ready to rise again. If the universe has a pulse, it is this: energy and emptiness exchanging places, being and non-being in conversation, reality inhaling, exhaling, eternally. The mystics and the physicists, so far apart in language, seem to touch hands here. Both say the same thing in different tongues, that beyond the opposites lies unity. The Buddhists call it sunyata, the great emptiness that is not void, but fullness itself. Physicists call it the quantum vacuum, an infinite field of fluctuating potential. The poets call it love, the invisible thread binding everything together. Whatever name we choose, it points to the same realization: that existence is not two forces in conflict, but one reality in motion. Light and darkness are not rivals, but reflections, the inhale and exhale of the same cosmic breath. Maybe the true source of light was never out there in the stars. Maybe it was always within, in the awareness that can hold both brightness and shadow without choosing between them. For the universe does not fear its own darkness. It needs it. The stars cannot shine without the void to shine into. Consciousness cannot awaken without mystery to awaken from. We are not trapped between light and dark. We are the flicker between them. The brief, radiant hesitation where both meet and recognize themselves. Consider what that means for us, the children of starlight and shadow. Every joy, every sorrow, every rise and fall in your life mirrors the same rhythm. You expand when you love. You contract when you grieve. You blaze with understanding, then fall into uncertainty. You oscillate between clarity and confusion, presence and absence. And in that motion, you are alive. You are participating in the same pulse that drives galaxies, that hums in quantum fields, that breathes through everything that ever was. When you close your eyes, you are not escaping light. You are completing it. When you open them, you are not banishing darkness. You are bringing it forward to be seen. Awareness is not the conquest of one over the other. It is the reconciliation, the still point between inhale and exhale, between knowing and not knowing. The universe began in brightness, but it also began in silence. It will end in darkness, but not without memory. And perhaps after that, it will rise again. Light born once more from the same eternal vacuum that has never stopped dreaming. Because in truth, it never really ended. The light and the dark are not phases of time. They are faces of eternity. The physicists say that even at absolute zero, when all energy is gone, quantum fluctuations remain. Small, restless vibrations that cannot be stopped. Existence refuses to be still. It cannot return to nothing, because nothing is alive. That irreducible hum, that tremor of being, is the universe's heartbeat. It is the sound of existence remembering itself. So maybe there will always be light, not as brightness, but as possibility. Even in the final darkness, the vacuum will whisper with energy. Even when time itself ends, the potential for time will linger. And if potential remains, then so does the chance for another dawn. What we call death, then, is not an ending, only a return to the unmanifest. The cosmos will inhale again. A new spark will rise, and the story will continue, not as repetition, but as renewal. The same energy, wearing a new face. When we understand that, fear dissolves, for we see that nothing is truly lost. Every photon that fades, every life that ends, returns to the same sea that birthed it. The darkness that awaits us is not the enemy. It is home. The silence after the final light is not emptiness. It is potential waiting to sing again. And in that realization, there is peace. Because the truth is not that light conquers darkness, or that darkness swallows light. The truth is that both are expressions of one infinite rhythm, a rhythm we have always belonged to. You are not a creature trapped between opposites. You are the pulse itself, the living flicker between being and non-being, between awareness and rest, between illumination and the void. When day folds into night, when stars fade into the black, when time itself exhales, remember, the rhythm does not end. It continues in silence, unseen, eternal. Light and darkness breathe together. And you, for this brief and beautiful moment, are their heartbeat.